Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about Blood at the Root by Ladarrion Williams. So, as always, this is a new book. It's the first book in the series, or what I believe is going to be a series. So I'm pretty much going to keep it spoiler free. There's not going to be many spoilers in this video at all. So we're just kind of going to talk about it on a general level. And we're going to finally give it a star rating, because I don't normally do star ratings, but I think I'm going to start doing that now. So this is going to be the first book that I give a star rating. So yeah, with that being said, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and if you're interested in supporting the channel in another way, you can check out the Patreon. The link is in the description. So with that being said, let's begin. So, Blood at the Root by Ladarrion Williams. It's a YA novel. It is about a young man named Malik who's about 17 years old. He has basically just emancipated himself and has early graduated high school so that he can basically get out of the foster system, because he's been in the foster system for the last 10 years because a mysterious event happened essentially that activated his magical powers, but also like it caused his mom to disappear, and as far as he knows, she's dead. And that's the reason why he's been in the foster system. But the only person he really cares about is his young foster brother Tay, who basically got separated from him, and he is basically trying to become legal so that he can take him and be his guardian, so that they can basically just move to California and just try to start a new life away from the abuse of the foster system and all the trauma that they've suffered. But he learns that actually you do have some family, and like he learns that there's members of his family that he hadn't met, so they kind of bring him in, and then they essentially tell him he's not alone in his magic. He is a part of a long line of magic users, and there's a lot of people that have magic, and in fact there's an entire school of magic users. It's a magical HBCU. It's a historically black college, and it is basically that's where he should go, because that's where his mom went and stuff like that. So he discovers that there's this entire other part of his life, and there's this huge family that he didn't know that he had, and there's all kinds of mysteries and stuff that come along with it. So essentially he dives headfirst into this entirely new situation and getting to know these people who claim to be his family, but of course he doesn't trust them because he doesn't know them. But he also goes to this school hoping that there is some answers to what happened to his mother, so there might be clues and stuff there. So basically for that reason he decides to go. So that's essentially the premise of the book. It's essentially Hogwarts, but it is surrounded by a young black kid who essentially has been in the foster system for most of his life. So that story sounds pretty run of the mill and kind of generic and typical of the YA genre, right? I mean, it pretty much is, but it's being told from the perspective of a young black kid, specifically in America, and very like of today. So this story is pretty much a run of the mill kind of very not cookie cutter, but it's very kind of contemporary type of young adult fiction, right? So it's very much a coming of age story. But the difference here is that it's being told very modern day, very much of today. It is very timely, not timeless at all. It is very much told from the perspective of a young black kid in America, and it is very circa 2023. Very much 2023. So that's kind of where the differences are. So it's kind of an interesting thing in that a lot of the dialogue and stuff is very much kind of AAVE, African American Vernacular English or Ebonics or whatever. It's kind of that. There's like a solid amount of that, but more than anything, it is very much Gen X or Gen X. It's very much Gen Z kind of Gen Alpha slang. It's very much TikTok generation type slang, and a lot of it, like, it dates it so heavily that I can't help but like just automatically think of that as a negative, because it dates it so horribly, to the point where like Malik will consistently talk about the music he listens to, and he's very much name dropping real music artists who, music that have come out, in a specific date, So it obviously just very much dates everything. So along with the slang, because the slang is very much contemporaneous, it's very much like what the kids are saying nowadays. So it dates it horribly. So like that's one of the different things in this book that like I think I don't like, because most fantasy books that I've ever read very much try to lean into the idea of being timeless. It very much doesn't want to kind of telegraph when it takes place, especially one that is I mean, because this is very much pulling from the Earthsea idea, the Hogwarts, all the magical schools that have existed throughout fantasy, throughout, the history of writing. So it's very much pulling from that. And most of those always tend to be kind of timeless, especially when it's a situation when the school is remote. And this school is pretty remote. but it's very much not timeless. So for me, that is very much a negative, but it's clearly one of the specific things that the writer was trying to do. So it's hard for me to like call it a negative as though it's a mistake because it was very much deliberate. So I guess I can just say this is a deliberate choice that I was not a fan of, even though it is interesting because it is very new. It is that kind of voice that is very much like not heard in fantasy. Like there's not a lot of black voices in fantasy. So like it's very cool to get that, but in a way it just kind of backfires because the way it's used is very much dating the material. I think the effort that goes into kind of using this more contemporaneous type of language kind of works really well and like integrating into this writing style. I think it works, but I think the way it's used in this instance dates the material, which is ultimately a negative for me. So yeah, that's I guess what I'll have to say about that part of the writing style. But it's very interesting to me. The other part of Ladarrion's writing style is that he is very poetic. Like his descriptions are incredibly poetic. Like, but not so much the physical descriptions because this book is interestingly light on physical descriptions, but a lot of the emotional and like sensational descriptions and stuff, that stuff is done very poetically. Like this very kind of like the only word I can come up with is poetic because just the descriptions of the like intimacy between characters or something like that, like it comes off as pure poetry. It's very beautiful in the way that it's done. So it's interesting to have like instances of that kind of writing mixed in with this very like annoying kind of like young kid slang that just like it's the you know that meme of a phrase like it's the blank for me, like it's the nonchalant voice for me, like that kind of thing. Like there's that all in there, and like there's just a lot of phrases that I feel like won't be a thing in the next 6 months or something. So it just very much dates it, and my brain couldn't help but like be pulled directly out of the story every time. Even though I think it's very apparent that this writer can like write something that is very timeless and probably integrate a lot of these different ideas that he clearly had into it, but just like take out a lot of the stuff that dates everything. But I think he could also write something that is completely like, you know, something more similar to the classics and stuff because this writing style that he has is very poetic and, you know, very melodic and that kind of stuff. I think it could lend itself to a lot of different like genres and stuff. So I think he like has potential to do some really really amazing like timeless type stuff. But it's also, you know, like I kind of course have to give him credit for trying to integrate this lesser known and lesser used kind of aspect of reality into this story. So I'm very much of two minds, but I think ultimately I have to land on the negative of it. All right, that's enough talking about the writing style. That's enough talking about the writing style. All right, so I want to, you know, I love world building and I love magic systems and stuff. So I, of course, have to talk about that. This world is very much just contemporary, like reality. He starts in Alabama, then he goes to Louisiana, and it's, you know, just America. It's very, you know, there's not a lot of world building or exploration to be done, specifically for Americans who've been around the country and stuff like I have. So for me, it just kind of builds itself all in there. But the world in which the school takes place in, it's like a pocket dimension. There's almost no development done on that idea, on like what that means. Like, is it just a place where the school grounds are, or does it like is it more like there's very little explored there as far as the world itself. But the magic is clearly the main focus because Ladarrion wanted all the magic to essentially exist in African-based religious spirituality. So essentially, the only magic users we meet are all of African descent. It's, you know, it's all about like black magic users. There's a little bit of an insinuation that the like Tituba from the Salem witch trials, the first woman to be accused of being a witch in Salem, like actually did teach some of the Pilgrim girls magic, and that like there was some European, some white girls that learned magic because of Tituba. So there is kind of a slight implication that there are other magic users besides black people, but this is obviously focused around black people. So the goal is to have a lot of the magic's root take place in African lore and African spiritual history and stuff like that. So there's some like talk about voodoo and the actual like what voodoo is and voodoo and hoodoo and like the different actual spiritual practices and religions that made up the idea of voodoo that exists currently in America and stuff like that. So it kind of strips down some of that, but it doesn't really go too far into any other like different cultural beliefs that, you know, aren't just that stuff. Like there's there's multiple different religious beliefs all throughout the continent of Africa, multiple different countries and stuff. So there's just a lot of different spiritual practice beliefs that just don't get touched on, and they kind of aren't even really hinted at. And there's like this issue that happens where there's characters from all over the world, like Afro Brazilians and stuff like that. People just with African core ancestry and enough access to their magic and that kind of stuff. So there's people from all over the world coming to this school, but for whatever reason, the Ladarrion decided to write them all in the same way. They all speak as though they come from the same area in America and stuff. So there's no real, cultural flavor or difference between these people, even though he makes a point of trying to, make a point of saying that the diaspora is, wide, very far spread around the world and stuff. But there's no interaction with characters that have that type of flavor of being from somewhere else. So like it's kind of like a hollow point that he makes. So that again for me like comes off negatively because it's not done well enough. There's not gone to he doesn't dig far enough into it is the issue that I have, I guess. And honestly, that can be said for the rest of the magic also. It's very surface level. That's very much the problem because the magic that these characters have is very nebulous. It's very much kind of a soft magic system, but it's attempting to be a hard magic system and the way they're trying to explain it in school and stuff. But it's very clear that these characters can do literally anything. Like, there's like very little limitation on their magic, which also has an issue. It creates the issue of giving their magic no identity. So even though all of them have different spiritual practices and like all their magic has different roots and different core systems and stuff like that, none of their magic is distinguishable because it's all just everything. So there's a point. This is a mild spoiler, but this is a thing that happens. The school is on lockdown because of a danger, and no one can teleport in or out because teleporting is near effortless in this world and everybody can do it day one. So like teleporting's no issue. So he puts a barrier up so that no one can teleport out of the school. But instead of teleporting, Malik just decides, without using spells or any discernible way we can think of other than just willing it to happen, he essentially turns himself into data and text messages himself to his foster brother that's at the house that's in the main world that's not in that pocket dimension. So like that feels like such a huge feat of magic and just like reality warping kind of like level of magic that I feel like there has to be some concrete explanation to that. Like there has to be like a cost to that level of magic. And there's just nothing. There's just nothing. It's very surface level. Even though this is a series, it's clearly going to be a series. So maybe there'll be more explanations and that kind of stuff later. But this establishing situation in this book, it just does not work out that well for me at all. It is very surface level, and as a world building and magic loving person, that really bugs me, and like it just left me with so many questions. It made it hard to like enjoy this kind of really cool, interesting like use of this like black voice, quote unquote, like to use this kind of like having it from the POV of this kid and stuff. But like a lot of it is very surface level and it comes across as shallow. So it just doesn't really work. It like as none of it is beyond surface level. That is the primary issue. And similar for the main character, Malik. Like he is a character who's gone through a lot of different stuff, a lot of stuff that would leave a lot of people angry, and it leaves his character angry. And a lot of the stuff that he like does to cope and does to deal with it and like personality traits to give him, like I kind of understand it because I feel like I have a mildly unique understanding of that age range and being black in America and having like various chips on your shoulder and stuff like that. Like I kind of understand it from that perspective, but that is far too inside baseball. That makes it far too like obtuse for anyone else. That makes it far too difficult for anyone else to relate when it's very much zeroed in on that. And even with that kind of internal experience I can draw from, the character still doesn't like come across as much more than that. So he's also surface level, but the problem is the nuance and the depth that's attempted to be given to him just comes across as like him being angry and like it makes the character unlikable, but not in that way that makes them want like interesting to read about. It just makes them surface level unlikable. so it doesn't go further. And there's like different things that happen like that is very common with his age range, like different his jealousy and like insecurities and that kind of stuff. Like all of that is very understandable and very typical of his his age range and that kind of stuff. But like there's no softening of any of that, and it just comes across as like misogynistic and then just bullying and petty and just really unenjoyable. So it makes the character really hard to get, to really enjoy. So yeah, I think I've talked mainly about what I've wanted to talk about, like the writing style, the magic and lore, and the main character. The rest of the characters are fairly, again, surface level. There's a one character that plays that his grandmother, like the one that we find out is his grandmother. She's actually a really cool character. I really enjoy her and stuff. She's a really cool character. It's a little more than surface level, but we don't get nearly enough with her, and she's pretty enjoyable. But as far as the rest of the characters, they're quite surface level, so not even much to write home about. So the entire book itself is not great, but I really do appreciate it for trying to like explore this area of like black people with magic. It's this thing that's hard to do, but he kind of stumbles very hard in a way that like breaks the entire idea for me, because I don't think having black people with magic works too well in like contemporary settings like this, especially when he has these characters as powerful as they are, because it's hard to understand how slavery could have ever happened if people were this powerful. If like they had this level of magic on a whim, I don't understand how that would have ever happened, like at all. And they also do a thing where they credit the Haitian Revolution to magic users. They're saying like the magic users helped set off the Haitian Revolution and stuff. And not only is that kind of a disservice to the people that actually died doing that, and all the people that basically were killed in service of revolution, like that discredits all their sacrifices and efforts and stuff in place of this magic. And then like that kind of puts an unfortunate lampshade on the fact that if y'all helped and used magic in Haiti, why didn't you help like any other time during like major hardships for like black people as like an entire group? Like when that stuff is happening, like why is no one using magic to fix that? Like why did no one use magic to fix Jim Crow? Why didn't no one use like, not even if like you said there weren't enough magic users to like fix slavery or whatever, like it opens far too many plot holes. Essentially, you can't keep contemporary history what it is with people that are this powerful. You have to explain and like like not diminish, but like you have to explain limitations on their power where these kind of plot holes can't just open up automatically. So that's kind of one of the big problems I have with the book. This way in which it opens that plot hole and doesn't attempt to like fix it at all or address it or even skirt past it at all. It just doesn't do it at all. So it just, yeah, it doesn't work out. So yeah, so for the first book that actually gets my star rating, we're going to have to give this book a 2. This book gets a 2 out of 5 stars, because this book has some interesting ideas and interesting concepts that I really would love to see explored. But everything that needs to be done in this book is done either surface level or just done poorly. So it doesn't work out. The idea is great, but the execution is really, really poor. And I even had to sit on this book for a while because I really did like enjoy it as I was listening to it, because I listened to the audiobook. But as I listened, as I, think more about it, and as I got to the end of it and stuff and didn't get answers and stuff, and everything was vague and nothing worked out really, I just kind of got more and more negative on it. So yeah, overall my views on this book is negative. I can't recommend it at all, but I hope you guys stuck around for this review just for the heck of it. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below. If you've read Blood of the Root, let me know what your thoughts on it was. And if you're, we're going to read it and I've convinced you not to, I guess let me know about that in the comments down below also. So yeah, with that being said, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and if you'd like to support the channel, you can check out the Patreon. The link is in the description. And as always, I will talk to you all next time. Peace.